Hey, it's Colby K. What I'm going to share with you today is something that's extremely important. It's covering 3 things that saved my life. But before I dive into what those 3 things are, I've got to be honest with you, and I've got to tell you who this message is for. You see, if you're going into 2018 and you've got your life completely figured out, this message is not for you. If you are completely happy and satisfied with your relationships with your significant other and your kids, this message is not for you. If you are completely happy with your health and wellness, this message is not for you. If you are completely satisfied with your bank account, again, you can see the theme here. This message is not for you. What I'm about to tell you is a message I've been able to share with thousands of people across stages in multiple countries. You see, I spent 15 years as an executive in corporate America building high-performance sales and marketing teams for companies you know. Companies like HP, companies like Apple, companies like Microsoft, large technology houses. And I took a big risk about 4 years ago, and I went on my own entrepreneurial journey to start a company. And you see, in doing so, I took a calculated risk, I packed it all up, I built a business, and off I went. And in the middle of this, I did what you see so many videos online tell you to do. I grind, I hustle, I grind, I hustle, I grind, I hustle. Well, let me tell you a couple things about the grind and the hustle mentality is I was grinding and hustling and thought I was doing the right thing, and then my entire world came crashing down. You see, about 6 months ago, to be exact, my wife came downstairs and her and I got into a little bit of an argument. You see, my wife was tired of the fact that I was grinding as much as I was and I was hustling as much as I was and was over it. She decided she wanted to move on in our relationship because she wanted somebody that could provide the things to her that were most important. Not financial stability, she wanted emotional stability. She wanted a romantic connection. She wanted somebody that she knew she could trust to be there not only as a husband, as a friend, and as a father. You see, I got lost in the mix of all of those things because I was so busy hustling and building a business. And as she came downstairs, we get into this argument. Its emotions are flaring. We're going back and forth. And the next thing I knew, my entire world came crashing down to a split-second decision, saying mean things I'll never take back. And as we're going back into this emotional back and forth, my young son comes walking down the stairs and sees his father and his mother engaged in verbal warfare. And I looked at my son, and with my wife having tears down her face, I promised myself something had to change. As I packed a bag and I left, her to go to her mother's house and me to go out to figure out what the heck was going to happen next, everything I thought I was working for, all of the 60-hour weeks, all of the extra time, the raising money, the getting the office, none of that mattered. Because here I was alone with all of my belongings in a car, driving state to state to go visit a friend of mine when it hit me. All of these things that I was working for were null and void because as I took my head up, I realized I left everything that was most important to me on an island behind. And I was doing it for myself when I thought I was doing it for everybody else. Months went by as I started to rebuild and hired a coach to help me build back the net things that were most important to me. And why was I in the position I was in? You see, I was angry. I was angry at myself and my health and where I'd let myself get to. You see, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease about a year ago, but it went 8 months undiagnosed. The pain I feel in my hands, I can't grip things. And you can see the arthritis is set into where my hands are crumpled. My back hurt. My legs hurt. My shoulders hurt. I couldn't get out of bed. And I use that as an excuse to eat like a pig and not work out. My relationships. I'm angry at my relationships because I don't have a relationship with my wife. I don't have a relationship with my kids because I'm too busy hustling and grinding. And my bank account. As much as I'm working, I don't have any financial wherewithal to show where all these hours are going. I'm literally just floating by. I'm angry at my money. What's one thing that really underlines all 3 of those things? Well, my health I can change. My relationships I can change. My bank account I can change. Those are things within my control. So what I'm about to show you was the beginning of how my life changed. And 3 things, my friends, that saved my life. I'm going to start with the first. I call these foundational building blocks. The first piece is self. Self being based on the word I. I goes back to about 800 BC as one of the oldest recorded letters in the English dictionary. Going back to self, and we think selfish, selfless. But I'm telling you, my friends, starting with self was one of the most important things that I could do. And as I build out these building blocks, and I say self, I broke it down into 3 categories. You see, my health. My personal health, I had to get my diet right. I had to get back to the gym. I had to understand that my personal health was extremely important, because if the foundation of my health wasn't good, my mental stability would go. If my health wasn't straight, I was going to continue to be weak as to how I showed up. The next piece was wellness. Right? Understanding that I needed to continue my health journey into not just my physical, but my mental health by adding in meditation. So I'm working out, I'm eating right. As of right now, I'm down 17 pounds. I'm up 13 pounds of muscle. That continues to go on, but I show up every day. The next piece was education. Spending time on the skill sets I needed to acquire to be a better person. My good friend Tom Bilyeu has a quote, "What you know now is as far as it's going to take you." If you want to continue your education, you've got to continue to acquire those skill sets. So what I realized as I was at really ground zero and my world had fallen down around me, is I hadn't spent enough time on myself. I was pushing off all of these excuses onto other people. Had I not started with self, nothing else matters. So I went on a journey to get my health in order, my diets in check, putting in day-to-day routines that would allow me to lose the weight, to feel better physically, mentally, and spiritually. Once this building block of the foundation was set, I was ready to then say, what else is important to me? And as I lie on this floor at a friend of mine's house in Salt Lake City, Utah, I'm on a futon with a blanket sheet held up around my neck, and tears are running down my face, and memories are flashing as to the things that were most important. You see, I didn't have a bad childhood. I just don't remember a ton of it. My parents were divorced. I traveled around a ton. But the things that I do remember are the times I spent with my family. It was the summer vacation home in Encinitas, California, with my kids first learning to surf. It was the time up in Pine Top in the White Mountains as my in-laws bought a new cabin and the kids going sledding for the first time and seeing snow. You see, those were things that were important to me. So that let me know right then and there that not only were relationships important, the next building block that I had to establish was that of progress. And when I say progress, I break it down into a couple things. As I build this out, you see relationships, you see finances, and then you see where goals fit in. You see, with progress, I knew that relationships were important, but just like my health, I had to identify a system that allowed me to show up in my wife and kids' lives and let them know that not only did I want to be a good father, I wanted to be a good husband. Finances, we already talked about. The money thing needed to be tightened down. Building a system to get out of debt. Building a system to draw additional income and to have my hand on where these creditors were coming from was overwhelming, but I knew I had to build a system and a way to get out of the financial situation I was in. And then goals, there was nothing long-term. And when I say long-term, at this point, friends, I was going hour to hour. I didn't know what I was going to be doing at the end of this video, let alone in a 90-day scenario. So understanding that I needed to put some things in place around relationships, finances, and my goals. As myself was the main building block, my relationships and building progress forward then became available and then was built. The third piece and the third foundational building block is that which I refer to as purpose. As much as we work and as much as we grind and hustle and do the things that we do, whether you own a business or you are an employee of a business, this was the biggest thing and probably one of the most important things that saved my life was understanding I was not living with purpose. I could work harder than anybody else. I could grind harder than anybody else. But if I was not living a life of purpose, meaning my health and wellness was important, my relationships were important, getting my money right was important, if I did not have a purpose in line, none of it mattered. I was simply going through the motions like many of you are doing today. Whether you're living check to check or you see your spouse and you're almost roommates because there's no emotional connection. Same with your kids, as I wasn't living with purpose. I broke purpose down into 3 critical areas. That of impact. What type of impact was I making on the work I was doing? What level of significance was that impact? And on my tombstone, what would my legacy read? And was I doing work that mattered to me, that when I was gone, my kids could be proud of? Taking these 3 building blocks, my friend, with self being the first, progress being the second, purpose being the third, it saved my life. And it allowed me to show up every single day, every single day, every single day. At 5:30 in the morning when the alarm went off, it said, "Get up, fat boy, it's time to go to the gym. Get up, fat boy, it's time to go to the gym." I go 1 day, I go 2 days, I go 3 days. Next thing you know, 4 months have gone by. I'm there 4 days a week. Could my diet be better? I'm human. I love sweets and treats, but I can tell you that I'm taking a conscious effort to it. At the end of each day, I look back and say, did I make a difference on those that are around me? Did I hit an area of self? Did I hit an area of progress? Did I hit an area of purpose? And then in my relationships, my wife told me there were things that were very important to her that I wasn't touching on that we needed to make sure were addressed. My kids, it was the same thing. So Monday, soccer with my daughter. Tuesday, skateboarding with my son. Wednesday, soccer with my other son. Thursday, date night. Friday, family day. Saturday, we do soccer. Sunday is extended family. In the middle of that, my wife told me some things that were important to her around help in the house. With 4 kids, the workload gets overbearing. Tuesdays, I do laundry from start to finish. We wash all the way to hanging up. Thursdays, I wash the floors, I clean the toilets, I clean the bathroom. Why? Because my wife said it's important, that she feels overwhelmed that I hadn't been showing up. I don't do it once, I don't do it twice. Just like the gym, every Tuesday and Thursday I show up. I'm proactively taking an action and living versus letting life happen because my relationships are important. Having progress and moving forward towards those things is important. Same thing with purpose. Am I aligning how I show up every day to make an impact of significance that leaves a legacy, not only that I can be proud of, but that my family can carry on? If anything I have just covered is relatable to the situation that you are currently in, I want you to pay attention because part of it is not your fault. Let me explain that to you. You see, science tells us at 25 years old, the behaviors you have built are the behaviors you're going to have for the rest of your adult life. Those behaviors only change when some amazing things happen. But before we dive into that piece, as we go through what we've been covering, there's a very important question I need to ask you. It's, what do you want? As simple of a question as that seems to be on the outside, it took me 2 years to answer that. My good friend Sean Whalen asked me for years, what is it that I wanted? And I gave answers. They were superficial answers that came from a place of honesty. I want better business. I want more money. I want to impact more people. I want these things. But you see, it's what I didn't want that was the most important. So the answer to that question for me was, I don't know what I want. Then it quickly became, I don't want to be angry, as my life came crashing down and my wife and I are in this altercation and my son walks down and I'm in that middle of rage and that fit of anxiousness and anxiety. I can tell you what I didn't want. I didn't want to feel that way. I didn't want to be angry. I didn't want to be angry at my health, my relationships, and my bank account. All things that were in my control. So I ask you, what is it that you want? And when you look at how you show up every day, what are you doing different? You see, at 25 years old, those habits are set. But there are 3 things that can happen that will alter that. You see, health. You have a major health breakthrough. You get sick, you get diagnosed with cancer, you're in a car accident. Things will change. Your relationships. When people go through divorces, you see things change. And then finances, when you lose a job or you go bankrupt. You see, when one of those major things between health, relationships, and finances happens, only then can you start to alter those behaviors and those things that need to change. In my scenario, all of those things came crashing down at once, making $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, running all of these businesses. Then everything fell in my face. I had health, relationships, and finances all collapse. When one of these things happen, they tell us that's when that's when change will happen. Well, there's one thing that's common between all three of those: pain. When the pain of your current situation becomes greater than the outcomes you are choosing to adopt, only then will you actually make change. Tony Robbins has a great quote that encapsulates that way better than I'm able to say. But pain is the altering factor between those three things. So my friends, as you look behind me at the three foundational pillars between self, progress, and purpose, you're not in this alone. Click down below. You're going to be able to join us for a specific special worksheet I put together that takes you day by day on the things that we covered to let you know that you're not alone. Click below, download the worksheet, join us on the other side of this video for a tool set that you can use that I personally put together months ago that have helped me keep on track day by day. I really appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the other side.